It was a dark and stormy night. Jake and his friends decided to explore the old graveyard near their school. They had heard rumors of ghosts and strange noises coming from there. They wanted to prove their courage and have some fun. They climbed over the fence and walked among the tombstones. The wind howled and the lightning flashed. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He wished he had stayed home. "Hey, look at this!" One of his friends, Matt, shouted. He pointed to a large mausoleum in the center of the graveyard. It had a metal door with a padlock on it. "Let's see what's inside." Jake hesitated. He had a bad feeling about this, but he didn't want to look like a coward. He followed Matt and the others to the mausoleum. Matt took out a pair of bolt cutters from his backpack. He snapped the padlock and opened the door. A foul smell wafted out. Jake gagged. He saw a staircase leading down to a dark basement. "Come on, let's go," Matt said, grabbing a flashlight. He went down the stairs, followed by the others. Jake reluctantly went last. He reached the bottom of the stairs and saw a horrifying sight. There were dozens of coffins stacked on the floor and the walls. Some of them were open, revealing rotting corpses. There were also bones, skulls, and other body parts scattered around. Jake felt sick. He wanted to get out of there. He turned around and saw that the door was closed. He ran to it and tried to open it. It was locked. He banged on it and shouted for help. No one answered. He realized that he was trapped in the mausoleum with his friends and the dead. He heard a scream from behind him. He turned and saw Matt lying on the floor, covered in blood. Something had ripped his throat out. Jake screamed too. He looked around and saw shadows moving in the dark. He heard growls and hisses. He realized that they were not alone. There were creatures in the mausoleum, creatures that fed on the flesh of the living and the dead. He was in a nightmare, and he had no way out. Sam and Leo were grave robbers. They made a living by stealing valuables from the dead. They had a list of potential targets, mostly rich people who were buried with jewelry, watches, or other expensive items. They usually worked at night, when no one was around. One night, they decided to hit a new graveyard. It was an old and abandoned one, located in the outskirts of the city. They had heard that there were some ancient tombs there, dating back to the 18th century. They hoped to find some rare and valuable antiques. They arrived at the graveyard and parked their van near the gate. They took their tools and bags and headed to the tombs. They found one that looked promising. It had a stone plaque that read, "Here lies Lord Edward Grey, 1723-1798, a noble and generous man." "Sounds like a good catch," Sam said. "Let's dig him up." They used a crowbar to pry open the tomb. They lifted the lid and saw a wooden coffin inside. They opened the coffin and saw a skeleton wearing a suit and a wig. Around his neck, there was a gold chain with a large pendant. On his fingers, there were several rings with precious stones. "Wow, look at that!" Leo exclaimed. "This guy was loaded." They quickly grabbed the chain, the pendant, and the rings. They put them in their bags and closed the coffin. They were about to leave when they heard a voice. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" They turned and saw a man standing at the entrance of the tomb. He was wearing a black cloak and a hat. He had a pale face and a long beard. He looked like he belonged to another era. "Who are you?" Sam repeated, startled. "I am Lord Edward Grey," the man said, "and you are trespassing on my grave." Sam and Leo looked at each other, confused and scared. They looked at the coffin, then at the man. They realized that they had just robbed a living person, a person who had been buried alive for over 2 centuries. They dropped their bags and ran for their lives. They heard the man laugh behind them. "You can run, but you can't hide. I will find you and make you pay for your crimes. You have disturbed my eternal rest, and now you will join me in the grave." Tom was a gravedigger. He worked at a small and secluded graveyard in the countryside. He had no family or friends. He lived alone in a shack near the graveyard. He spent his days digging graves and his nights drinking and watching TV. He didn't mind his job. He liked the peace and quiet. He didn't care about the dead. He just did his work and collected his pay. He never bothered to read the names on the tombstones or the dates on the coffins. He didn't care who they were or how they died. One night he was digging a grave for a new arrival. He had received a call from the funeral home earlier that day. They said they had a body that needed to be buried as soon as possible. They didn't give any details. They just said it was urgent. Tom didn't ask any questions. He just agreed and waited for them to deliver the body. They arrived at dusk and dropped off a black bag. They didn't say anything. They just left. Tom dragged the bag to the grave he had dug. He opened it and saw a woman. She was young and beautiful. She had long blonde hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a white dress. She looked like an angel. Tom felt a strange sensation. He felt something he had never felt before. He felt a pang of pity. He wondered who she was and what had happened to her. He wondered why she had to die so young. He decided to do something he had never done before. He decided to give her a proper burial. He decided to put her in a coffin. He had a spare one in his shack. He went to get it. He came back with the coffin and lifted the woman out of the bag. He placed her gently inside the coffin. He closed the lid and carried it to the grave. He lowered it into the hole and covered it with dirt. He made a cross out of 2 sticks and planted it on the grave. He wrote her name on it with a marker. He made up a name. He called her Anna. He felt a sense of satisfaction. He felt like he had done something good. He felt like he had honored her memory. He felt like he had given her some dignity. He went back to his shack and slept peacefully. The next morning, he woke up to a loud knock on his door. He opened it and saw 2 men in suits. They had badges. They were police officers. "Are you Tom?" one of them asked. "Yes, I am. What can I do for you?" Tom replied. "We're here to ask you some questions. Do you mind if we come in?" the other one said. "Sure, come on in," Tom said. He let them in and offered them some coffee. They declined. They looked serious. "Tom, we're here to talk to you about a murder case. A woman was killed last night. She was stabbed multiple times and dumped in a ditch. We have reason to believe that you are involved," the first one said. Tom felt a shock. He felt a cold sweat. He felt a fear. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know anything about that. I'm just a grave digger. I don't have anything to do with murder," he said. "Really? Then how do you explain this?" the second one said. He showed him a picture. It was a picture of the woman he had buried. The woman he had called Anna. Tom felt a horror. He felt a disbelief. He felt a guilt. That's impossible. That's not her. That's not the woman I buried. She was different. She was alive. She was beautiful," he stammered. "Save it, Tom. We have evidence. We have your fingerprints on the bag. We have your DNA on the body. We have your confession on the cross. You wrote her name. You wrote Anna. That was her name. How did you know her name, Tom? How did you know the name of the woman you killed?" the first one said. Tom felt a confusion. He felt a denial. He felt a madness. "I didn't kill her. I didn't know her. I didn't write her name. I made it up. I made it all up. It was a coincidence. It was a mistake. It was a nightmare," he cried. "Sorry, Tom. It's too late for that. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you. Do you understand these rights?" the second one said. Tom felt a despair. He felt a resignation. He felt a doom. He nodded. He didn't say anything. He didn't resist. He let them handcuff him and take him away. He didn't look back. He didn't see the grave. He didn't see the cross. He didn't see the name. He didn't see Anna.